It's Beer O'Clock, and this is the Beer O'Clock Show, where every week we talk about the amber nectar delivered unto us by angels and heavenly trumpets. My name is Mark, and joining me, descending from the mount, holding the 10 Commandments, all of which are "Thou shalt drink magic rock," is a man devoted to the hop and bolder than the baby Jesus, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Great, thank you. Incredible opener this week.
Thanks. Well, this is a very special show this week, being our now annual Homebrew Special, and with it a bunch of homebrewers have squeezed into the Beer O'Clock Show studios, so much I've had to borrow chairs from the neighbours. So let's do a quick round of introductions before we get on with the show. So joining us are in no particular order, Daz Oakley.
Hello.
Connor Murphy.
Evening.
And Andrew the Hobstacle Hobbs.
Hi, everyone.
We have a beer from each of them tonight and we'll be enjoying them very shortly. But before that, Steve,
Mark.
Tell us about the little magical moment on the weekend.
25 taps of magic. Yes. We went down for a couple of hours, didn't we, to Brewdog Shepherd's Bush to see what was going on.
We did.
And we had a great time in the 2 hours that we were there. I did promise myself that I was only going to do 2 flights of 4/3. But then when I nailed those in just over an hour, I decided it was probably best to do a third as well, and work my way through various
You did those 2
offerings.
flights in the time it took me to do 1.
Yeah, well, I was really thirsty when I first got there, and the first flight was all the low ABV stuff.
Mm-hmm. Continue.
So you wanted more than that.
Yeah.
No, it was good. I mean, I certainly enjoyed the beers that I tried. I predominantly went for magic rock beers that I haven't drunk before. Although within that stipulation, I did manage to squeeze 2/3 of Cannonball in, which obviously I drunk on numerous occasions. But it almost felt as I had to do it. But no, the highlights for me, a couple of real standout beers in the Dark Arts red wine barrel aged, which was an absolute stunning stout that had been aged in red wine barrels. It just you just got the combination of the 2 flavours coming through, and that was a beer that I quite literally could have sat and sucked very, very slowly all afternoon. That was a real winner for me, and it was only closely matched by the Rose Lair Rosehip Red Belgian Ale, which was bordering on sort of sour lambic type style, murky as fuck, but just really, really nice and refreshing to drink.
And you were a bit scared by that before you drank it?
I was very scared by it, yeah, because I didn't realise it was that particular style of Belgian ale. I thought it was going to be one of these Belgian-y things that just tasted like yeast. So I'm glad it didn't come across like that.
Very good. I had 2 flights. I can't remember most of them, but the Circus of Sour Cherry and the Salty Kiss were my standouts, I think. Very nice indeed. Right.
Yes. Good beers. Good day.
Yeah, it was.
It was. I think it was. I read somewhere that this is Magic Rock's biggest ever tap takeover. So they had 25 on tap. As we record tonight, they've still got 23 going. But I know there are a few guys gone down there to try and drain them of what's left this evening.
Well, good luck to them.
Yes.
You have some news for us this week before we get on to the main part of the show.
I do. Yes. Pips?
Oh.
No news pips?
Beep, beep,
Oh, we're not
beep,
doing them
beep,
anymore.
beep,
Yeah,
beep,
there
beep,
we
beep,
go.
beep.
Okay, first up. Running over the weekend of the 20th to the 22nd of June in London at the Space Studios at London Fields is the Summer Brew Fest. Beers from London's finest microbreweries will be on offer there. There are going to be 12 brewers, although one of them's Scottish, apparently, so not just London. But they are a Scottish cider producer, so apparently stunning ciders for people that like their cider. And they're also hoping to, I suppose, tie in with tonight's theme a little bit. They're hoping to have a strong homebrewing element there, with some experienced homebrewers on hand and live brews during the day sessions that people can get involved in. So they're splitting the sessions into beer geek sessions and beer lover sessions. So there will be different varieties dependent on which session you want to go to. Standard food offerings, but the breweries that they've got confirmed are Bear Hug, Brick Brewery, By the Horns, Crate, 5 Points, Hackney Brewery, Hamilton, Hop Stuff, Late Nights, London Glider, Rocky Head, and Thistly Cross. So that's the Summer Brew Fest, 20th to the 22nd of June. For more information, summerbrewfest.co.uk.
Cool.
Okay, that's the first one. Second one's a bit of self-promotion. We're heading out. I say we, me. I'm doing the Bermondsey Beer Mile on the 14th of June in the name of the Beer O'Clock Show. Connor's coming down to join us for it, and I know we've got a few others coming down as well. If anybody wants to come along, we're starting at about 11 o'clock at Brew by Numbers. There's more details on the website if you want to have a look. Just click on the tab that says Beery Gatherings for more information on that and other events that we're planning.
Indeed.
And for my final piece of news, and I've left this to last because I want to canvass the opinion of our guests on this one tonight. Thornbridge, in association with Waitrose, have launched the Great British Homebrew Challenge 2014, which is your chance to join the craft beer revolution. And it's their quest to find the best homebrewer in the UK. So we've got a bit of detail on this. Entries need to be submitted by the 31st of July. There are a number of different categories. Standard mile ales, standard bitters, best bitters, porters, stouts, old ales and strong milds, premium bitters, strong bitters and specialty beers. So there's a range of beers a range of different categories available. Judging is going to take place in August, and the winner receives £250 cash and gets their beer brewed by Thornbridge and sold in Waitrose stores. So that's launched this weekend. For all the details on it, it's gbhomebrew.co.uk. But as I say, I'm interested to get the views of the homebrewers on the shows tonight about this announcement from Thornbridge. So anybody got any comments about it?
I'll go first. It's Andrew. I'll have a crack, I think. I've seen there's been a bit of debate on Twitter about them claiming it's the first, or whatever it was, the first ever national homebrew competition, but I find it quite hard to get excited about whether who's first and who isn't, because I mean the thing I think is most important is it's kind of got homebrew onto a national consciousness and perhaps onto the radars of people that wouldn't have known much about it before, so that's all got to be good.
Okay, so it's a good thing in your opinion then?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah. Especially it's Thornbridge who are associated with it. I trust those guys, and yeah.
I think so. One thing I would say, sorry, Connor here. One thing I would say is that maybe the timescale could have been a little longer for entries, and I'm personally in a little bit of a panic now in trying to work out recipes and perfect styles before the deadline, which is around 8 weeks away. So maybe they could have given a bit more time for people to get entries in, but that's a kind of minor complaint. It is good to see. It's good to see something like Waitrose combining with Thornbridge to give homebrewers the platform that they deserve.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my main worry is, the deadline. Like, a lot of the stronger beer styles, you need more than 8 weeks to get a beer ready for serious consideration. So, yeah, unless you've got one already made or you're making it this weekend, you could have a few problems. But it's really cool, though.
Excellent. So I think that's a resounding yes from our assembled panel of experts in terms of whether it's a good thing. And I take it all three of you are planning to enter Brews into it then?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
As the other two have said, we've got to crack on.
Yeah.
In fact, why are we doing this show? I've got beer.
Yeah, you should be brewing.
Valuable brew time.
Okay, excellent. And so that ends the news for this week.
Very good, very good, very good. So that moves us on to the main portion and most important portion of tonight, and we have quite a bit of beer to get through. We have 3 brews. Forgive me if I get the order of these wrong. But we have, from Daz, we have the American Pale.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for this beer, or do you just call it American Pale?
Just American Pale. I'm not that inventive.
Very good. From Connor, which was handed over to me very Cloak and Dagger-like in Euston Station. There's chocolate orange imperial stout. And from Andrew, we've got What Lies Beneath version 1.0, a black IPA. So the ABVs on these are giving me chills. So which one are we doing first, Steve? Are we doing the American Pale?
We're going to start with the American Pale.
All right.
We're going to work our way up the ABVs.
So Daz, you're in the spotlight, mate.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So tell us a little bit about this beer and how you came to do this particular recipe and why you did this particular recipe. While we crack them open and
it's
pour.
basically that's cool. It's basically a rebrew of a beer I made last year, and that beer won first place in the American Pale Ale category in the London and South East craft brewing competition, and basically for that one I used Citra Simcoe hops, but I ran out of Simcoe this time round, and I used Mosaic instead as a whole bunch of those. But basically, it's just standard pale ale recipe.
Okay.
Can I just say, it smells amazing from
Yeah.
the
Smells
bottle.
I'm just trying not to pour too much yeast in mine.
Yeah, you did pre-warn us about that.
It's a bit-
Thank you for that.
It's a bit yeasty.
Yeah, you did pre-warn us, but I didn't get your email until I was on the way into work this morning, and they weren't in the fridge yet. So I don't know how well settled
Who
mine will
did?
be. It's got that craft haze to it. I don't know if it's supposed to have that craft haze to it, but fingers crossed.
It's a bit murky for me.
Yeah, but it smells great.
Yeah, this one's very, very young. Yeah, when I gave this one to Steve, it had literally been bottled 2 days before, I think it was. So,
Okay.
yeah, this could do with probably another 3 or 4 weeks to actually settle and clear a bit.
So, Des, can you tell us how you got into homebrewing and why? Apart from wanting cheap
I
beer.
got into home brewing. Well, yeah, there was that originally. I just always fancied it. My dad used to make wine back in the day when I was a lot younger, and I always quite liked poking the demijohns in the cupboard and that sort of thing, listening to the bubble, and just always fancied trying it. And yeah, my wife said I could buy a kit a few years back, and I bought a barrel, and yeah, the obsession started from there.
Cool.
Guess if I didn't make beer, I'd just be spending lots of money on fancy kitchen equipment, and they're coming like 10 stone heavier instead, with that being the obsession.
And how often do you brew?
Not as often as I'd like. I tend to brew maybe once a month. Last year I hardly brewed at all, but this year I've managed to get 4 brews in already. So yeah, once a month, once every 2 months at the moment, but I'm hoping to do it a lot more regularly very soon.
Cool. Well, let's get into this beer and we can pepper Daz with our compliments.
Yeah.
It smells lovely.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
Oh, that's a real guzzler. You could probably just want to finish that. That's coming across really clean, really crisp.
What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Similarly, I think it's a really, really easy drinker. It is nice, clean flavoured. The hops are coming through really well, but not too much. I mean, you get some pale ales, obviously, the complete hop bombs, and you're kind of overwhelmed a little bit, but they're kept in check a little bit here, and it's better for it.
There's nothing wrong with a hot bomb, Connor.
No, true. True. You know me well enough.
Yeah.
I like the hot bombs, but for drinkability, we want that decent balance, and this has got that.
Yeah, it's amazingly well balanced. I think. Having what I'm finding as well with it as well, having had the mosaic hop on its own in the single variety, quite a bit recently since Marks and Spencers have started doing the Adnams version. The Citra seems to really balance the mosaic, and where the mosaic can be a little bit too grapefruity and a little bit too tart, it seems as though the Citra in this has really balanced that, and it brings through a lot more of the other more sort of like subtle fruity flavours. It's a really nice beer.
Yeah, I find mosaic can be a little bit cloying as well when it's used too much, and like you say, it's balanced well here, and that it doesn't let it take control of the beer.
I've never used mosaic before. Daz, is that what you used in the dry hop as well?
No, so it was all Citra in the dry hop.
Okay.
It was 2/3 mosaic to 1/3 Citra in the boil and aroma. But yeah, all Citra in the dry hop.
That's good. I mean, just to add comments, I think the drinkability has helped as well because by the carbonation, which is quite soft, means you can get it down your neck quicker.
Yeah. I think that's probably a more refined way of saying it's a guzzler. Because I've attacked that like it's the first time I've ever drunk beer.
And we know that's not true.
Yeah, I think well documented as well. But no, it's got the head on it has retained really well all the way down as well. I've got still. I'm heading towards the bottom of my glass, and I've still got a lovely looking drink there.
See, it's got some wheat in it, according to the label as well. I don't know if that's contributing to the head.
Yeah, some wheat and some carapils as well to help the head retention and body.
Okay, so just explain to us what those two ingredients do.
It's, various different malts you can use, and to aid head retention, generally people add wheat malt to lighter beers to help keep a nice fluffy head on top of your beer. And there's another malt that I used in this called carapils, or dextrin as it's sometimes known. It's the first time I've ever used carapils, but it seemed to help the head retention quite nice.
And that it's sugars that don't ferment, isn't it? Daz, is that right?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Which adds to the body as well.
Yes.
And you say this is a rebrew of a beer that won an award for you?
Yeah, I was quite happy with that one last time. The one last time turned out a lot sort of lighter, and it was much, much clearer than this. This one's quite dark and murky compared to it.
You mentioned the murk, and there is a haze to it, but I think a lot's made of murky beer or clear beer. I think it does come down to if it tastes good, and if it's not a yeast bomb, I think that's the crucial thing really. Then it's fine by me. I mean, there is a haze, but it's still quite bright. You can tell it. You know, it's well made beer. It's not full of yeast like some murky beers can be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm quite happy with the clarity actually.
It's certainly not off-putting, is it?
Not at all.
No.
Cool.
Very tasty beer, Daz. Well done.
Good, glad you like.
Yes, very well done. Stick that in the Thornbridge competition.
Oh, that's definitely the plan.
If you're saying it's going to be even better in a couple of weeks, then you might have brewed that just about right.
Yeah, I might have got a lucky one there.
Right, shall we go on to the next one then? Unless anyone has anything else to ask Daz or comments.
I did just want to finish that one, but
Come on then.
I can come back to it after the show.
You can. Our next one up on the rack is, which one is it? Black IPA. From Andrew. It's a 6.1%. It was bottled in April. I've got more to say about this, but it's more on the label. What Lies Beneath version 1.0, a black IPA, as I said. Andrew, what can you tell us about this one?
So this is the first time I've ever brewed a black IPA. I'm quite interested in black IPAs because I think they're they kind of mess with your head a little bit.
Yeah, they messed with mine.
Yeah, like you're looking at something, and basically it's a pale ale that looks black, and sometimes I think as you're drinking it, you can taste roasty notes when they're not even there. Although, having said that, lots of brewers there's lots of different brewers who have different approaches to it. So some will include some roastiness, but others will just kind of hold back and just use a basic IPA recipe, but then add. What I did was, I think it was Carafa 3 that I used to make it black. And that was, if you want to know how I kind of made it, I did a lot of research about how to get it as dark as possible without keeping the roasty notes restrained. And what I came down to was I put some Carafa 3 in the mash. I think it was less than 5%. I can look it up, in fact, if you guys want to know. But then I did something which not many people do, which is I steeped the same amount cold in the sparge water. And just to explain what that means is, once you've done your mash and you've drained it off, you seek to rinse the residual sugar that's left in the mash out using an extra load of water. And by steeping it cold, it meant I got colour without any roastiness at all. So I got extra blackness, as it were, in the brew without adding roast. And this too is hopped with Citra, which I think you can still smell. In fact, it's still quite pronounced.
It's coming through. You're not, as you say, you're not getting any of the roasted notes that you normally get with a black IPA.
No.
You seem to have hidden them quite well.
Yeah, and that was the idea. I mean, I do like roasty black IPAs. Like one that springs to mind, I think it's got a bit of roast, is Partisans one, which is pretty rare. But yeah, I used, as well as Carafa 3, which made it black. The malt bill was pale malt, Crystal, and Munich. And then the hops were a combination of Centennial, Citra, and Cascade.
If you was doing this blind though, you wouldn't know that was black from the aroma.
No.
No, as you say, black IPAs often do have that roasted notes to it. Well, that's my perception anyway. Like, as you say, people often think that when they aren't there, but that's purely because it's black.
Yeah, no, I do honestly think that it does deceive you. That the image deceives the taste.
But it's a lovely tasting beer, and it's got a really nice looking, like, caramelly white head on it. Came out looking black as I can't even get any light through it. That's how black it is.
It actually looks like a stout in the glass, with the colour of the head, because you've got that sort of creamy off-white head. It actually looks like a stout, and it poured quite thickly as well. But certainly on the taste and on the feel in the mouth, it's a lot lighter than it looks.
Yeah, I like the fact that you've actually gone to the effort of paying attention to how it looks when it's poured out in the glass, rather than just how it tastes. I think that's great.
It could be that, because that's all he's got to say about it.
I just can't believe there's absolutely zero roastiness in this for something that black.
Yeah. Well, the Carafa 3, if I'm right in saying, it's dehusked, and a lot of the aroma comes from the husk. I'm sorry, the roastiness comes from the husk. So all you're really getting with Carafa 3 is colour.
Oh, okay.
As I understand it.
So, Andrew, how did you get started in home brewing, mate?
If you want to read the full smash, there's an item on the website about it, which I did for Steve a while ago. But just in short, I think I kind of got into the new UK beer scene a few years ago, I guess. First noticed Brewdog and that sort of thing, and I'm a keen cook, and I don't quite know what happened. I think it was a voyage on Twitter one late evening, and I ended up spotting Indie Man BeerCon was on, and got into some conversation with one of the organisers who mentioned homebrewing, and I said, "Oh yeah, I quite fancy that." Getting a bit carried away. This was about 18 months ago. And one thing led to another, and they said, "Oh, just buy Papazian's book." So I bought that, read it, and thought, right, I'm going to have a crack. And the rest is history.
Did you have a night on the sauce and wake up the next morning finding you'd ordered a load of homebrew kit?
There was something like that. was
I've
probably like,
found that all the best conversations start on Twitter late at night.
That's where all the best ideas are.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the creative time, isn't it?
So
If you can make it after 11 o'clock on a Friday night, you're onto some real winning ideas at that point of the evening.
So what was the first beer that you brewed, Andrew?
it was a Cooper's kit of Aussie Pale Ale.
Okay.
And it was, I think it was extract. I think it was even hopped extract. It was really basic. It came out okay. I mean, the thing I sort of, your point of reference, I don't know if it's the same for the other guys, was my dad in the 70s, and I think the stuff that he used to produce was god awful. So when this thing turned out, it was actually all right. It was drinkable. But I suppose compared to what I do now, it's I'd probably send it back.
Well, that's a good summary of the Cooper's Pale itself, anyway. It's okay, it's drinkable, so you did all right.
Yeah, I don't think it tasted like the original, put it that way.
I'm really hoping that this is the black IPA that's finally going to convert Mark to black IPAs.
Well, I did say I am kind of bending towards the black beers lately. I had a black beer on the weekend.
You did?
Yeah.
Which one did you have?
It was the Punchline I had.
The normal version.
Yeah, the one I had to scold because I was running out of time. But it was nice enough. That's the one that has chili in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mouth was burning. It was very, very bitey, the Punchline. But no, this is a lovely beer, Andrew.
It's stunning. Yeah, you get a really you get a nice big sort of fruity hit up front, and then it gives away to there's a lovely dry, bitter finish that's coming through there. But it's the sort of finish that makes you want to go back to have another swig to help with the bitterness.
Glad you like it.
Yeah, and there's a slight nice alcohol warmth on the back of your throat as well after a big gulp, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
But like I think Steve said, if you had your eyes closed, you wouldn't know it was a black beer because it's got all the characteristics of a good IPA. And then
you don't get the roastness, but what you do get is a good firm body. I think from it, it holds it well.
I was just going to say, I know Andrew was talking a few days ago about, dependent on how tonight was, he was thinking of entering this into a competition. So where do you stand on that now? Let's put you on the spot. Are you going to do it?
Well, on the basis that I've got 6 bottles of it left, and that's the exact amount that I need to enter, and I've got nothing else to enter, I think the answer, and I'm not seeing any vomiting on screen. I think the answer to that is yes.
And it saves you 8 weeks of faffing as well.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to enter it for the London South East Craft Brewing competition, but perhaps I want to keep it for the Waitrose one. I'm not sure if black IPA will make it onto the shelves, but hey.
Do you think that's going to be a contributing factor in the beer that they choose? Going back to that, do you think Waitrose are going to have a say in whether they feel as though it's going to sell or not?
I mean, I'd be interested in what Connor and Daz think, but that was my immediate reaction when I looked at it. I'm not particularly familiar with the SIBA categories that they use to say which beers they should enter. The ones I'm familiar with are the BJCP ones, which give a much broader range of styles. They separate them out a lot in a lot more detail. And the way I looked at it, I just thought, yeah, that's all to do with marketability. But you can't blame them, really. Also, I guess, to do with being able to make the beer and be able to buy the ingredients at a commercial rate and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. It was something Daz could talk about it with Windsor and Eton were running a competition with London Amateur Brewers and to produce a recipe for Magna Carta, which is a beer they're producing right now, and the judging's tonight. And that was one of the considerations that they had was, are we actually going to be able to make this stuff commercially? So you can do a lot more as a home brewer than you can as a commercial brewer.
It's interesting, just actually, you say that. I'm just quickly looking at the categories again, and there doesn't seem to be anything above 4.9%. Oh no, here we go, above 5% ABV.
Yeah, there's
premium bitters.
IPAs get put into the premium bitters category, I think, don't they? And I think I do agree that there has to be, with Waitrose taking control of the competition, there has to be a degree of saleability coming into the equation, because if they're going to put something on their shelves, it needs to appeal to their customers. It's just common sense on their part, and that's no bad thing. It's the way they've got to operate, but it does mean that you're a little bit restrained in terms of the styles that you can produce. And when I was thinking about recipes that maybe I put into the competition, I was immediately thinking, well, what I make usually might not be what they're looking for, so I'm tailoring my thoughts towards what I think they want rather than what I would normally brew.
I was going to ask that question. I was going to say to all of you, is that going to influence what you're going to brew? Is are you going to brew what you think they want you to brew, or are you going to look into maybe go into a few Waitrose and see what's on the shelf and see where the gap is in their current offerings?
Well, I mean, definitely. You've got to brew something you think that they'll want. I mean, you could come in with like a 12% imperial stout that I don't think you'll do very well.
Hear that, Connor?
Yeah, I know. I've come to this realisation already.
Well, I love a good imperial stout, but I mean, that's probably a good one, actually, going to actually look, see if there is a gap on their shelves, because they probably will take that into account. I mean, as long as it's good beer, then that, if they get several equally good beers, if they have one that sort of fills a gap in what they're looking for, then that might hold it in good stead.
Do you think there's a certain element of it also being down to Thornbridge as well, in terms of not brewing anything that's too close to what Thornbridge currently offer within their range?
I think
it could be.
I think possibly partly that, but I think coming back to a point that was made before, I think it's possibly more that they want it to be commercially viable. What homebrewers do isn't often commercially viable. So I've in the Manchester Homebrew Club recently, one of the people there had brewed. It was very nice. It was interesting. It was a 10% double IPA with a whole kilo of Cascade gone into a 20 litre batch, which is pretty damn ridiculous. But it would be completely commercially ridiculous, but it was something he could try at homebrew level, and it was something that was a worthwhile experiment. It was interesting to try the results.
So for you guys, how much of what you do in terms of your homebrewing is just experimenting and just seeing what can I do with beer?
I've not done so much. I've played it pretty safe, but I know Andrew's probably done a hell of a lot more crazy stuff than most.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done, Andrew?
I don't know, crazy. I've got a blackcurrant stout on at the moment that doesn't actually taste very much like a stout. I've got I did a rhubarb wheat beer, which, in fact, fruit is a nightmare as far as I'm concerned. I'm seriously thinking of not using fruit in anything anymore. I've done a grapefruit and juniper IPA. What else have I done? I did a steam beer, which turned out actually more like, according to Tabermatu, more like a Westmalle double. I've got no idea how I did that. I think I boiled it for too long. That's probably the... I did a cherry tea saison, which actually was really nice.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I can't claim credit for that. It was an idea I got off of Buxton, who did a tea saison at Indie Man BeerCon last year.
That was a good beer as well,
exactly. Yeah. And it worked really well. So all I did was made a basic saison, and then in secondary I stuck some tea from Whittard's, one of those fruit. It's got no black tea in it. I just stuck about 50 grams worth of dry tea in it, and it worked.
You seem like such a sensible man.
It's a lot nicer than it sounds, Mark. Honestly, it may have a bottle left that you can have.
Mark loves a wild saison. He really does.
But I haven't yet fermented an open vat in the back garden yet. I mean, I'm just, I'm a little bit away from it.
Right, do we have any final closing comments on this black IPA for Andrew?
Really drinkable.
It's bloody lovely.
From my perspective, it's gone. That one went. A really lovely beer. And just to reiterate again, if you couldn't see it, I don't think you'd know that was a black beer. So well done on that one.
Thank you.
Right, let's move on to glass number 3 and beer number 3.
Yeah, we were talking about crazy brews.
This is one that, ever since it was handed over to me in the station, I've been looking forward to this. Simply because I'm imagining in my head that it's Terry's Chocolate Orange in a glass. So if it's not, I'm going to be really disappointed.
I think that's what we're all hoping, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is Connor's Chocolate Orange Imperial Stout, 9.3% ABV, with Amarillo and Summit hops. Tell us a little bit about this, Connor.
Well, this is now 6 months old. I brewed it because it was a concept that I thought might work. Big chocolate flavours in a stout. Chocolate orange obviously being a very popular form of confectionery, and I just went for it. I just thought, why not give it a go? So brewed it big, 9.3% to get plenty of body out of the malts, good amount of residual sugars, and then put orange peel, cocoa nibs, and vanilla pods in the secondary, and let the beer sit on that for, I think it was 3 weeks in the end. So yeah, it's an interesting experiment. I think it was better young, but I've been kind of opening bottles of it every couple of weeks for the last few months, and just to see how it's aged. And I think the orange and the vanilla and the chocolate have died down a little bit, and you're getting more of the kind of the underlying hops coming through. The Amarillo gives it more of a kind of a piney orange flavour rather than the actual kind of full-on orange of the orange peel in the first place.
I could get orange from the bottle when I first opened it, but now that I've poured it out, yeah, I'm getting more of that piney thing coming through the orange, but it still smells lovely.
There's a hint of orange there. I agree with what you said. There was an initial blast of it when you opened the bottle. It was like the orange came screaming out. But now it's like background aroma and hops and some chocolate there as well on the aroma.
In my first sip, I don't think I can talk. I'll let you guys carry on.
It's just going to go quiet now from your corner of the room, is it?
Oh wow, that's nice.
It is very good.
It's very smooth, and it does almost taste chocolatey.
Oh, yeah, really.
Like
smooth.
I say, it was with the chocolate. The chocolate was better when it was fresh. Strangely, for an imperial stout, often people talk about them aging really well, and it's aged okay, but early on it tasted so much better because of what I'd added in the secondary was still vivid, and it was still really came through strong.
Yeah, I've tasted a number of imperial stouts over the last sort of six to 12 months, Connor, and like homebrew ones, and they've been made with different ingredients, and I think all of them have had that issue that it fades. And I'm not sure what you do about it. And on the vanilla thing, I put vanilla in this rhubarb wheat beer that I made, and one thing I noticed about using pods is that the vanilla flavour is actually in the seeds only, and they drop out. They don't actually impart any flavour in the liquid, for example. So maybe using oak would get more vanilla flavour in it, and it's lovely. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a lovely beer.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to think, understand why, from a homebrew perspective, an imperial stout would be better drunk young, whereas the standard formula for imperial stouts is to just leave them and let them age for the more commercial ones. What's the difference between what you'd brew at home and what you'd brew in a commercial brewery?
Greater exposure to oxygen mainly. People like using a brewer, for example, because we've mentioned them several times this evening, but Thornbridge, throughout their process, they're really strict on making sure the levels of oxygen that meet the beer are very low, that when it's bottled, it's not being exposed to any oxygen it doesn't need to be exposed to. They're keeping that level really low throughout the process to make sure that the beer doesn't fall apart when it sits on the shelf for a while. Unfortunately, with homebrewing, we're not using the most sophisticated equipment at times, and that exposure to oxygen can mean that beers can fall apart with age, or they just don't. The flavors just don't hold as well, and you kind of get a little bit of oxidation as it goes on.
But you're still producing fantastic beer at home. I mean, this is really, really drinkable. Worryingly so for 9.3% on a Monday evening when we're recording. And
yeah, sorry about that.
We've all got to go to work tomorrow, which is fine. It's good, but it's almost like I'm going to compare this to like one of those floater coffees that you can get in a restaurant, but that's had a dose of Cointreau dumped in it. That's what I'm getting from it. It's coming across. You've got that real kind of there's a hint of the coffee, the roasted flavors coming through, a little bit of chocolate coming through, and then just that hint of orange coming through at the end. But the thing that's getting me is just how smooth it is and just how easy it's going down.
Yeah, this one's dangerous.
Agree with that. So,
Connor, why don't you tell us, the other guys tell us how you got started in homebrewing.
I've long been a fan of beer, as we all are. I've always kind of grown up around Manchester. The scene's dominated by the big family brewers, the likes of Robinsons and Holts and Lees. So you're kind of exposed to cask ale from a young age, and I've always had an interest in kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit, not just settling for kind of bland lagers. So as that developed, a friend of mine, we kind of talked about it and said, why don't we brew our own? It seemed like the kind of next logical step, really, because we just enjoyed beer so much that we thought, well, why don't we try and brew the stuff that people aren't commercially able to make, that we want to try ourselves, and that's kind of where it came from.
Okay, what was your first one that you ever did?
We were brewing with malt extract first, and that's, if you're not a home brewer, you won't kind of be familiar with these kind of big vats of malt extract, which is just sticky, gloopy, syrupy kind of. It's liquid. It's awful stuff. You basically pour that into boiling water to create just brown warts. This kind of base. I made an IPA with that with I can't remember what hops. I think I went bold first time. I used experimental 366 because it was available at the time, and just thought, oh, I'll try this out because I've never tried it in a commercial brew.
Okay, cool. And plenty of knowing laughs from the other two then when you're talking about that malt extract.
We've all started.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've still got a lot of it left if anybody wants to buy any. Got about 10 kilos in my garage.
I think you could stick tiles on a wall with it, really.
Doesn't sound like great stuff.
What would the three of you say is the chief lesson that you've learnt from your homebrewing experience since you started?
Keeping good notes for me. When I first started, I was brewing so infrequently. I would make the same mistake over and over again until I started. I bought a bit of software and kept notes in that software, and that helped me to actually sort of iron out mistakes and then actually start being able to repeat decent batches over and over again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just keeping good notes, trying to aim for repeatability and sort of improve each time that you make a different beer. That's my main one.
What about you, Andrew? Or Connor?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, actually. I mean, one of the things I mentioned that I started because I had a keen interest in cookery, and the thing about cooking is you can taste it as you go along, so you kind of got some idea of what the finished dish is going to turn out with. Like, the thing about beer is you've got no real idea until it's finished fermenting, or certainly towards the end of fermentation. So the only way you can kind of work out where the recipe went wrong or the process went wrong is doing exactly what Daz has said. And that's the thing. I think the lesson I still haven't learned the lesson, which is to go back and start doing things I've done before, and see how they've gone. See whether I can repeat them. I just keep on creating new ones, so I haven't learned the lesson.
What about you, Connor? Do you have any harsh lessons learnt, or?
Yeah, I think for me it was not to worry. I'm a born worrier. Anything that I can worry about, I'll overanalyze to the nth degree. But with beer, it's easy to do that. To think, oh, what's happened? What happens if it doesn't ferment? What happens if, there's so many things you can worry about. But just it's easy. It's easy to make a drinkable beer. I think is one of the big lessons I've learned from it. And I couldn't recommend it highly enough to people. If you want to try it, do it, because it's not as hard as it might first seem.
Okay, if I wanted to take up home brewing next week, what would be my first steps? Because I've actually have considered it. I kind of mentioned it to the wife, and she went, "Ooh, no."
I think you need a bigger flat first of all.
Yeah, bigger flat, definitely. Having actual space. But what would be my first steps? Just as
If you wanted to go really basic, walk into Wilco's with about 50 quid in your pocket, and you can walk out with a kit and a barrel and a fermenter bucket, and that'll be all you need. And you get 40 pints of okay beer.
That's not a bad return on investment, though, is it? That's just over a quid a quid a pint, isn't it?
And then the next batch is only £11, and that's another 40 pints of beer. So with the kits, it's really, really cheap. But yeah, as you progress on to doing more tailored beers, more like all grain or making it from extract, it does get a bit more pricey. So,
or investing in tea bags.
Yeah.
Just going into Wittards is enough to break the bank.
That's right. A couple of weeks ago, I tweeted something like, "If anybody says to you that homebrew saves you money, they're lying." And I got more retweets and favourites to that than any other tweet I've ever done.
Yeah, it'll only save you money if you stay on kits.
That's right.
Yeah, I worked out with this imperial stout that it probably cost me around £4 to £5 a bottle. So in the end, with all the ingredients accounted for and the equipment and so on, yeah. So it's definitely not cheap.
So you're not going to be rebrewing this one then, Connor? No.
No, this isn't going to be the Thornbridge Wedge drug. I'll tell you that one now.
Steve, do you have any question for our guests?
So you're right there.
Yeah, I was.
I'm fine.
No, I think you've asked them all. I suppose the one question that I always like to ask is where does your inspiration come from? Because as a brewer, I'm sure you all want to constantly try and come up with new ideas and fresh ideas. And where do you look for inspiration?
Well, the homebrew is quite often, because I find bouncing ideas off people and getting honest feedback from people is really good. Being part of the Manchester Homebrewers Club has been brilliant for me. I really enjoy going down and kind of tasting other people's beers, finding out what they've been doing, and getting their feedback on mine. It really helps you to improve and gives you ideas on what to do next. And of course, things you taste as well. I think Andrew mentioned before, tasting the Buxton Tea Saison at Indyman, and when you taste a beer like that, you kind of immediately think, well, can I make something using those similar methods and produce something tasting similar?
Cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. Yeah, going to the London Amateur Brewers Homebrew Club. Get to taste lots of very interesting beers each and every month, and listening to there's other podcast network called the Brewing Network.
There's no other podcast.
Apart from you guys, yeah.
This is the only one.
Yeah, listen to you guys first, then these other American types. And but yeah, they've got a variety of different shows with some really, really well-known homebrewers, and yeah, the content in there is fantastic. If you can get past all the Americans.
Sorry, what was that called? Because I fear I may have talked all over the top of you saying what it's called.
It's the Brewing Network. They've got I think they've got 4 or 5 regular shows now. There's one called the Jamil Show where they talk about different beer styles and how you go about brewing those particular styles. There's Brew Strong, which is a Q&A sort of style show where people can just ring up or email in their questions. And then there's the session, which is basically 6 people in the room getting drunk. And that's, yeah.
Pretty much started tonight then.
Yeah, basically. They have regular shows every week, and it's really good content.
There's also Brewing TV out of the States, run by Northern Brewer. That's a big sort of homebrew supplies distributor. And that's worth a watch. They're complete lunatics, the people that run that. But I mean, for me, exactly the same, I suppose. I mean, just building on what Connor said, I think going to beer festivals is a good way to get inspiration because you can taste a hell of a load of different beers, particularly the sort of modern ones, if you like, the ones that have popped up in the last couple of years. And the other thing I do is to, again, going back to that cooking thing, is think about what flavours work together. So the grapefruit and juniper IPA that I was made with Cascade, so a hop that has grapefruit characters. But looking at juniper, I was looking up for a cocktail called Salty Dog, which was a cocktail loved by one of the Amos guys, Martin Amos or Kingsley Amos, one of the two, which is grapefruit and gin. So I thought, that sounds like it might go well together. So put juniper and grapefruit together. So it's that sort of stuff, just looking at flavour combinations that might work.
Cool. Okay, do we have anything else you want to cover, Steve, before we tie this up?
Just to give each of the guys an opportunity, because I think they've all got their own blogs possibly as well, and their own websites where people can check out. I know Andrew wrote a piece for us last year when we did the last Homebrew show. But this is your moment in the spotlight, guys. Where can people check out what you do?
Daz, you go
Darren?
first.
Yeah, seeing as you're on my screen at the moment.
Mine's think-beer.com. It's very neglected. I haven't posted on there in ages, and I really should do. So, yeah, you've probably shamed me into actually writing a few posts.
Yay!
You're also on Twitter as well, aren't you, Daz?
Yeah, Daz Oakley.
There you go.
Connor?
Beerbastard.co.uk, which is partly, I've done a few homebrewing posts on there. I should do more, but mainly just my inane ramblings. So if you like that kind of thing.
And where can we find you on Twitter?
Like the Murphys, which is a nod to the old Murphy's Irish Stout adverts, if anybody remembers them.
I'm just going to jump in at that point. Check out Connor's blog, because he's doing a great series at the moment about beers that you can find in supermarkets. That they're a really good read, actually. So you've just posted one about your Asda basket.
Which surprised me. It was quite
I'll
good.
tell you what, that was a good basket that you got from Asda's.
Yeah. And it's now $4 for £5 apparently in Asda, which,
even more of a reason to go to Asda.
Get down to Asda price.
And how about you, Andrew?
I blog in 140 characters. That's what I'm saying. No, just Twitter, Hobstacle, HOBBSTACLE. Yeah.
And what I think I'll do to coincide with this show is I'll probably repost the article that you wrote for us last year as a new blog, just on its own, because I know you was one of 3 people that wrote an article to go with our homebrew show last time. But I'll just repost that as a blog in its own right this time, because what you wrote in there was fascinating in terms of how you got into homebrewing, and it does give people a good point of reference as well.
All right, Steve. I think that's about it.
Yeah. Have I got anything else to say? No, I've got some more bits, but you carry on.
This has been a trio of very, very good, not even just homebrews, just beers. I commend you, chaps.
It's a real shame that people can't get hold of these beers to try, because they are, as I would say, they're as good as any beer we've ever reviewed on this show. Well, every one of them tonight.
Yeah, they're all incredibly drinkable. They've all got character. I mean, the American Pale, I like my lower ABV beers. So, and Daz, I've had one of your beers before. you gave me the Yang IPA.
Yeah.
Which was gorgeous, and your American Pale is great. I loved it. But I loved all your beers. Connor, disappointed that this wasn't Terry's Chocolate Orange in a bottle, but I'll let that slide because it was very drinkable and very enjoyable. And
I'll try harder next time.
and a black IPA that doesn't try and shove coffee notes down my throat is very much appreciated, Andrew.
You're very welcome.
Steve, any final words about the homebrew before we get on with the outro?
Sorry, I've just gone back to the rest of Daz's beer.
I think I've got to do the same.
that I still had. Just to thank the guys for appearing on the show and sharing their beers with us. As I'm sure you're all aware, you're all aware, as in the guys that are on the show tonight, not the listeners, and not the millions of listeners that we have. It was a bit of a gargantuan effort getting these beers to everyone, but it was good to meet up with you all. Unfortunately, I wasn't around to meet Connor to pick up his beers, but we got there in the end. So thank you for agreeing to come on the show. It's a real treat for us to hear from you guys that actually are really passionate about what you do and to really share that passion with our listeners as well. And as I say, it's a shame people can't get these beers because they are very, very commendable beers. So well done, guys, and keep doing more of the same as well, because this is good stuff.
Indeedy.
You're very welcome. Thanks for picking up the beer, Steve.
Cheers.
Yeah, anytime.
Yes, thank you, Steve.
My back still hasn't recovered.
He is the Beer O'Clock Show mule.
I am the craft mule.
Right, Steve.
Yes.
Instagram. Do you have anything Instagrammy?
No, nobody Instagrams
You
anything this
bastards.
week. So we'll try again.
All right.
We're on Instagram at Beer O'Clock Show. Instagram us some bloody pictures this week. Hashtag them cheers guys or beer porn, and we'll pick them up, and hopefully we'll have an Instagram of the week next week. That's my new thing that I'm trying. An Instagram or a beer porn of the week. That's what I'm after.
And coming in a future show or two, we will have actual reason to do that other than being mentioned.
Next week.
Next week. Exciting stuff.
Yes. And also, just to mention at this stage, if you haven't already had enough of the hour or so that we've been rambling on this evening, there is more to come at the end. There's another interview this week. This week's interview is with Mark, who's the manager of the new Bottledog store, Brewdog's bottle shop, just outside of King's Cross. Reason why we put it on this week's show is because they're supplying homebrew equipment as well, and Mark does talk about what their plans are for homebrew. So hang around till the end and check out the interview.
Very good. Right, you can find us on Twitter at Beer O'Clock Show. The website is beeroclockshow.co.uk. You can also find us on iTunes and on Stitcher. Leave us a little review or a thumbs up. It really does help. Stay tuned for the interview. I'm done.
Do you want to know what's on next week?
Yeah, what's on next week, mate?
Yeah, what's on next week? I know you're done and you just want to go to bed, but
Connor has finished you off.
Something lower ABVs
Yeah,
next week.
next week, slightly lower ABV next week, and only one bottle of it. Next week we are featuring the beer that topped our UK top 10 IPA poll. We are reviewing Marble's Dobber next week. And there will also be an interview from Marble Brewery as well, talking about the beer, the brewery, and how thrilled they were to have won our little poll.
I'm sure sales have shot through the roof as well.
Their sales have increased, but we'll save that for next week.
Cool. Right. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, Daz, Connor, and Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We're very honoured to have you, and best of luck for your entries into the Thornbridge Waitrose Homebrew Contest. I expect all three of you to win.
Three-way tie.
Thank you.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the answer to winning it, is to do a collaboration brew.
Yeah.
And enter
Why
that.
not? Right.
I've just mixed all three dregs into mine, into one glass. We'll
See how it
works.
tastes.
There it is.
I'm
There's your
bottling
winning
it.
beer right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, if our minds came together, I think it'd be quite a crazy brew.
Right. Until next week, Steve. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
It's beer o'clock, and welcome to another instalment of our London Brewery series. However, this week in a slight swerve from our normal casts, where we're talking to brewers in their breweries, normally in the arches of a railway somewhere in London. This week we are at the new Brewdog Bottledog shop in Gray's Inn Road, London, and I'm with Mark, who's the manager of the shop. Hello, Mark.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, not too bad, mate.
Welcome to the Beer O'Clock Show. It's great to have you on. Thank you for giving us the time to come down and chat to you. Firstly, tell us a little bit about the shop. You've not been here long. Tell us the background to the shop and where you're at now.
So basically we're a beer shop essentially. We're stocking about 150 to 200 varieties of beer at the moment. Everything from the kind of local London stuff that you've been talking about, loads of interesting Belgian, German, a good bit of American stuff, and we're growing that range all the time. And obviously we've got a bit of homebrew and stuff going on as well, which is a side of the business we're kind of evolving around the feedback we get from customers as we go.
And certainly the thing that strikes you when you first walk into the shop is just the sheer range of beer that's available here. I think you mentioned between 150 to 200 different bottles.
Yep.
And those are from not just the UK but all over the world as well.
At the moment we've got New Zealand, Japan, obviously US, pretty big Scandinavian section which is growing all the time. We're trying to get as many different nationalities and styles of beer as we can possibly get, really.
Mm-hmm. And also up there you've got some growler lines as well, haven't you? Just saying you've got 4 growler lines in the shop now?
Yeah, before the growler lines we've got a pretty good bit of kit that pumps it full of CO2 and seals it really fresh. So that's again something that's fairly new to London. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other people doing it. But it seems to be quite popular at the moment. We're flying through the IPAs at the moment. Everyone's keen to take it home fresh and on draft and drink it at the comfort of their own home.
So for those that there might be a few of our listeners out there that haven't come across growlers before, just explain what the concept is with the growler.
Well, basically it's takeaway draft beer. It's really big in America, but it's never really kind of worked here. We have done it in our bars for a while, where we would fill up canteens and take it away. But we've took it to the next level and doing it in more of an American style. So essentially it's like a bottling line. So we're pouring fresh draft beer out the keg, and there's a little bit of CO2 in it to protect the beer, and it's sealed up and people can take keg fresh beer away with them. At the moment we've got the Kernel and Titan IPA on, which are just tasting amazing. And it's basically a way that you can drink beer as good as it is on tap in the pub, but at home.
And what size do the growlers come in? Do they come in different sizes?
At the moment we've got 1 litre and 2 litres, so that's I think that's about as big as most people want to go.
And so do the prices vary dependent on what beer's going in them, or is there a standard price for a growler fill of a certain beer?
The price depends on the price of the beer basically. So it's by the litre. And you pay, you buy your growler for £5 or £10 depending on the size, and then generally it'll be £6-7 for a lower ABV local beer, up to kind of £9 or £10 for a higher ABV or a more exotic beer.
And let's just talk about the location of the shop for a bit. You're on Gray's Inn Road, which is probably about halfway between King's Cross and Holborn. Why here?
I think it was just, there's not really a good bottle shop centrally. There is a few kind of bottle shops in London which, do really great ranges, but they tend to be more kind of, out of the way, rather than more kind of suburbs of London rather than central. So we thought it was a good option to put one which was easily accessible to more people. Especially with the homebrew side of things. I think we're the only people doing that, and if you're in the middle of a brew on a Saturday and you need to run out at the last minute and get something, then we're really well connected here. So I think that was the main idea behind putting it so centrally.
And from a Brewdog point of view, what was the thinking behind the bottle shop? Obviously, you've got the online store. Was this simply just an extension of the online store, or was it just about bringing better beer to people in London?
Yeah, well, I think like our aim's always to try and kind of bring beer to as many people as possible, and with something like this, we can make it a bit more accessible and a bit more affordable, and also we can spend time with customers, maybe in a way that's a bit more difficult in a busy night in one of our bars. So it's a different way for us to sell beer, and I think the range that we can stock here, things like interesting Belgian stuff that we kind of love, but maybe doesn't do so well in our bars. We can also show off that kind of style of beer and have a much bigger range than we could possibly have in one of our bars.
And what's the response been like to the shop opening? I've read things on Twitter and various blogs that it seems as though shelves have been stripped 2 or 3 times over. Are people taking well to the shop?
Yeah, I think people have surprised us really. We thought we would be quite busy, but the first weekend, we really struggled to keep the beer on the shelves. So it's been really good. I think our pricing's been really competitive, and that's been something people have been really happy about. And some of the stuff like McKellar stuff and the American stuff, we've kept at a really reasonable price so that more people can access those beers, and we can introduce people to a really interesting range of stuff. So the feedback's been massively positive, and I think for something that's a Brewdog business, to have very little people criticising us has been something of a coup. It's been very positive.
And do you think there's one thing that you can say really sets Bottledog apart from other bottle shops?
Well, I think the fact that we only specialise in beer. I think there's one other place, the Beer Boutique, and that's in Putney, which do a similar thing, and obviously they've got a lot of Belgian and European stuff, whereas I think we've got better access to the American stuff. So I think our knowledge of the range that we have here is hard for anybody to rival, because we specialise purely in beer. If you asked most of the guys upstairs to talk about wine, they'd be lost, but they know their stuff about the beer. The freshness of the stuff that we get in as well, like the stuff we import directly, all the Oscar Blues and the Great Divide, has only been in bottle, in March. So the chance to get that stuff that fresh is something that we're really passionate about, and I think that's something people have been excited about.
And you mentioned briefly there that all of the staff are really passionate and knowledgeable. Is that part? Was that part of the recruitment of staff? Were you looking for people that had that knowledge and background and passion around beer?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a small team here. There's only 4 of us, and I got lots and lots of really good CVs in, so it was important, that people had that beer knowledge. But I'm sure as you and many of your listeners know, beer geeks aren't always the most outgoing and friendly folks, so you've got to balance that. You've got to be able to communicate how passionate you are about beer in a friendly way, and also when somebody comes in and says they're looking for Budweiser or Miller, not make them feel like a pariah, and be able to show them in a friendly way some more interesting beers.
Mm-hmm. So, in addition to the massive range of bottles that adorn your shop, you also have plans for tasting sessions, and is it the Brewdog Beer School is going to be here as well?
Well, I think it'll probably be slightly different to the Brewdog Beer Schools. We've got a massive range of beers to go through, but we are looking to offer all sorts of tasting packages and run interesting events. Maybe we'll do some interesting like food and beer pairings, and speak to people about all sorts of different things. So yeah, any way we can show an interesting pairing with beer, or highlight beer in a different way. We'll be looking to run some interesting events, and also looking to create quite a community around our homebrew section. So we're looking to run classes on different styles of brewing, and all different levels, from the absolute beginner to specialising on yeast strains and stuff. So we're looking to do as many things based around tasting and the actual making of beer as possible.
And you mentioned home brewing there. On this week's show, we were chatting to some home brewers and reviewing their beers. Tell us a little bit about the homebrew offering that you've got here in the shop.
Well, at the moment, it's fairly new, and as I say, we're trying to tailor that around the needs of customers. So at the moment, we've got a fairly decent range of grain and hops. We've got wet yeast and dry yeast and basic equipment. But we're looking to work with some people who make really interesting bespoke brewing kits to offer a kind of tailor-made service for people who want to buy brewing kits. We're also looking to get a big chest freezer for fresh hops and get the grain in so that we can actually mill it to order, and people can come in and with a specific recipe sheet and buy exactly what they need. So I think that's where we'd look to take it. We'd like to look to tailor it and to be as flexible to customers' needs as possible around the homebrew and stuff.
And in terms of the shop, am I right in saying this is the kind of prototype for Brewdog, and that this might be the first in a series of Bottledogs that we see appearing?
Yeah, sure. I think anything that you do with Brewdog, is always it's always a kind of benchmark for the future. So what we do here will certainly influence whether we open more and how many more we open. But the plan is certainly at the moment to do more based on the success we've had already in the opening few weeks here.
Mm-hmm. And from a wider Brewdog point of view, you've had quite a successful start to 2014 with new bars opening and the bottle shop. What's next that you might be able to reveal at this stage?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I'm not high enough up the ranks for any special privy of it. But there'll always be more interesting bars opening. You'll see a lot more from Bottledog, and no doubt there'll be a lot of more interesting beers coming out this year as well.
Mm-hmm. So again, just finishing on the shop itself, if people want to know more information, where other than popping in and coming and chatting to the guys, how do they find out more about what you've got on offer?
Well, basically social media is always the kind of best way to follow something at Brewdog. We've got a little section on the site that on the website that updates the growler taps, and we're always tweeting as new beers come in, and we're discovering new things. The bottle range will be changing on a weekly, almost daily basis, so there won't be a live list for that, other than if people want to contact us on Twitter, we're pretty responsive.
Yeah. And I've noticed on Twitter recently that people have tweeted you and asked you to hold certain beers for them. Is that something that you're widely offering? So if somebody knows that you've got a particular beer in and they want you to put it back to one side, are you willing to save beers for people?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our motto is basically always to try and do as much as possible for customers, whatever that is. So if you can reserve beer, we're happy to do it. And if people want to do a drive-by and throw a few cases in their boot on a Saturday afternoon, we're happy to do that too. So.
Okay, Mark, so if people want to get in touch with you on social media, how do they do it?
The best way is probably to follow us on Twitter. We're just at Bottledog Kings X, and the cross is an X.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going to let you get back upstairs and sell more beer.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.